Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're cracking open a really practical toolkit for your academic writing. Choosing the wrong tense is actually one of the fastest ways to confuse a peer reviewer and kind of inadvertently undermine all your hard work. So we're zeroing in on lesson 24 of our materials. The mandate here is super clear. We've got to separate eternal facts from historical events. We're going to look at exactly how to wield the present and past tenses to bring clarity, accuracy, and just absolute authority to your research.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with Welcome to Lesson 24, setting the stage with the researcher's lens. Then we'll cover the present tense for universal truths and present tense for habits. After that, we shift gears to the past tense, looking at completed events and documenting methodology. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with mastering the timeline.
Section 1. Welcome to Lesson 24, The Researcher's Lens. Whenever we write academically, we're constantly filtering information through this researcher's lens. And listen, choosing the right tense, it's not just about blindly following dusty grammar rules to appease an editor. It's really fundamentally about distinguishing structure from process. Think about it. Unless you somehow secretly invented a time machine, your reader needs to know exactly when your facts are happening. The tenses you choose are literally the lenses you hand to your audience. They draw a hard line between what's universally true right now and exactly how a study was conducted in the past. It just brings your whole timeline into sharp, undeniable focus.
Moving on to Section 2, Present Tense, Universal Truths.
So, in academic texts, the present simple is our go-to for talking about facts and situations that are just generally true. I want you to think of this tense as the absolute bedrock for establishing universal academic truths. It projects this unshakable authority. When you're laying down a fundamental principle, something that doesn't just magically change based on the day of the week or the year or who's looking at it, you've got to use the present simple. It's not a fleeting observation, right? It is a permanent fixture of reality. Take this classic scientific fact. When you heat a substance, its particles move faster and so collide more frequently. Now, what's really interesting about this is we're not talking about one highly specific, maybe slightly flawed, chemistry experiment run by an undergrad yesterday afternoon. No, we're talking about the unchanging laws of physics. Because these underlying physical facts are locked in, they happen every single time heat is applied, they absolutely demand the present tense. Your researcher's lens here is focused entirely on permanent.
Let's walk through a few more concrete facts straight from our source material to really nail this down. Take the phrase, water is heated by the sun. Look, unless the sun suddenly brings out tomorrow, this remains a present truth. Or consider population data. China and India have about 37% of the world's population. And almost 1 billion people speak Mandarin. Notice those verbs, is heated, have, speak. Because these truths are stable, heavily documented facts about our world, they sit firmly and comfortably in the present tense. It instantly signals to whoever is reading your work that this information is established and widely accepted.
All right, Section 3, Present Tense Habits.
Think about your own daily schedule for a second. Even though human routines involve choices, rather than, say, the unbreakable laws of the universe, there's still established patterns. Take these examples from our text. 49,000 people enter Waterloo Station every day during the morning peak. Lectures start at 9 o'clock. I work with computers. Now, this brilliantly illustrates something key. Because these events repeat reliably day in and day out, academic grammar actually treats them exactly like a universal scientific law. Using the present simple basically tells your reader, hey, you can bank on this happening again and again.
But, looking at all these present truths naturally leads us to a pretty vital question. What happens when the facts are firmly in the past? When the action is entirely over, done with, and box stock?
That brings us to Section 4, Past Tense Completed Events. Time to enter the historical archive. The absolute golden rule here is a closed time period. The past simple is used for events, discoveries, and situations in the past which are completely finished. If the action is entirely over, done with, gathering dust in the archives of history, your verb has to reflect that closed chapter. You're no longer talking about how the universe always works. Instead, you're pinpointing exactly when a specific, finished human endeavor actually happened.
Let's jump into the timeline and see how this builds. In the early 17th century, Galileo discovered Jupiter's moons. Jump to 1887, Ludwig Zamenhof invented Esperanto. And actually, fun fact about that, he was really hoping it would become this universal second language to foster world peace. Fast forward to 1928, Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. And in 1984, Charles W. Hall invented the 3D printer. Discovered, invented. These are permanent, finished events. Because they're bolted securely to a specific year or a specific era, using the past simple is just entirely non-negotiable. Your researcher's lens has officially shifted to look backward.
Section 5. Past tense for methodology.
When you sit down to write your own methodology section, you're essentially acting as a historian of your own study. Take a look at how the early printing process is described in our source text. Step 1. A flat piece of wood was carved with words and pictures. Step 2. The wood was brushed with ink. Step 3. The wood blocks were pressed onto paper. Notice the past simple passive voice doing the heavy lifting there? Was carved, was brushed, were pressed. It intentionally yanks the researcher out of the spotlight and focuses purely on the completed historical actions. It tells your peer reviewers exactly how the blueprint of methodology was completed without any ambiguity. Here's another really specific example, this time from oceanography, to further lock this in. In 1960, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh made the first expedition to the trench bottom. They used a U.S. Navy bathyscaphe. Now, the expedition itself is completely over. Jacques and Don are safely back on dry land. So we use words like made and used. The past tense tells your reader definitively that the methodology phase is closed, and what follows in your paper will likely be the enduring results of that past action.
Section 6. Mastering the timeline. Let's bring it all together.
Okay, let's bring both these concepts together and compare them head to head. Consider the statement, water is heated by the sun. That operates as a present fact, a totally eternal truth. Now consider, penicillin was discovered in 1928. That operates as a past event, a closed historical finding. So the crucial point is this. The split second your reader sees is versus was, they immediately know whether to treat the information as a permanent rule of the universe or a specific historical event. The verb does all the heavy lifting for you. It provides that much-needed structure to your science. Which leaves us with this final thought. If a single tense shift can transform how a peer reviewer perceives an eternal fact versus a historical accident, how will you wield the timeline in your next academic paper? Remember, grammar isn't just some arbitrary set of rules you're forced to memorize. It's your researcher's lens. Use it strategically to keep your brilliant work in sharp, undeniable focus. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and happy writing!